Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is nutrition, and we're going to be discussing nutrition concepts for strength athletes. So if you are not a strength athlete, but yet you still clicked on this podcast to learn something, good for you, because there's going to be a lot of helpful information here. I laughingly said it that way because sometimes in these podcasts I'll say, like, hey, even if you're not a strength athlete, this still has good information. But it's hard to convince somebody of that if they haven't clicked play yet on the podcast. So that was probably all for nothing. So if you have clicked play, thank you. And I wanted to talk specifically for strength athletes. And we're going to be talking in regards to maximizing strength and aesthetics in the sense of trying to have as much muscle as you can with as least body fat as you can, while holding weight, gaining weight, or losing weight. So, and the reason why we're going to talk about this is because most strength sports have weight classes involved. So people have the concern of not only getting stronger, but how do they either maximize their weight class or how do they manage a weight class. Now, this is going to be helpful for anybody wanting to listen to this, or because if you want to gain muscle and gain size, say you're a bodybuilder, this will actually have helpful information for you. However, we are going to be following up this nutrition podcast with a nutrition podcast for aesthetic athletes. So we're going to be following up stuff specific for you. And then also, if you want to lose weight, it's important, and it's probably part of your goal, whether you're saying it this way or not, is you want to lose body fat but not muscle. So when you say you want to lose weight, it means we want to lose body fat. So we want a number on a scale to go down because to us that represents fat loss. But that isn't the whole picture. So we've talked about how a scale just measures how much fat, muscle, water, bones, everything, however your hair is. It just measures everything on your body. So it doesn't measure fat loss. So if I step on a scale, 2 weeks from now and I'm down 2 pounds, that doesn't mean I've lost 2 pounds of pure body fat. Who knows what that 2 pounds was? It could be some water weight difference, depending on the way I'm eating that day as compared to the 2 weeks before. It could be a whole bunch of variables. So when we're trying to lose weight, quote unquote, we want to lose body fat. So the stuff in this podcast will help us kind of just more understand the process of managing muscle tissue versus fat tissue and how to kind of maximize the muscle, minimize the fat. Okay, so like we said, basically for strength athletes, your main concern is going to be getting as strong as you can, getting, most likely you're going to want to get a lot of muscle. But like even if you're like a female who wants to get stronger, but you don't want to look like a bodybuilder, you probably still need to build muscle as well. So how lean you get will affect whether you look like a bodybuilder or not. And then also, it takes freaking forever to lift weights enough to look like a bodybuilder. So I wouldn't get too worried about it right away. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So you're not going to wake up and just be like, oh my God, my arms are huge, my legs are huge. I just have way too much muscle on my body. So what you would do is you would work towards building muscle because it's needed for your sport of strength. And then whenever you're happy with kind of the way you look, you would kind of minimize the stimulus for muscle development. So this might have to be an entirely different podcast, but there are training ways to increase strength but not increase muscle mass. So there's very specific kind of training techniques you can use. And that's alone of nutrition. So that way you don't have to minimize nutrition in order to prevent muscle gain and then maybe hinder your your strength increase. If you change the training techniques to reduce the stimulus of muscle growth but maximize strength development, you can still maximize your nutrition to get the most out of your strength. So it's kind of like depends on how you want to attack it. Is most people, when they say like, oh, I don't want to build too much muscle, they automatically think of holding back on food. But that doesn't have to be the case. You can just change your training techniques to de-emphasize muscle building ones and more emphasize strength building that doesn't involve the muscle building. So we'll save that for another podcast. In general, some good things we can think of here is the reason what we need. So our concepts for nutrition as a strength athlete, the main thing we want is we want to eat well enough to recover so we can improve from training session to training session and be able to increase our performance. And we also want to be able to recover so we avoid any injuries, recover so we can get the most amount of kind of strength adaptation. So we want to make sure we're eating enough. Now, often in powerlifting, people will eat more to recover, and then they'll complain that they're getting overweight. So they'll say, oh man, I'm gaining a whole bunch of body fat. I don't really want all this body fat. So powerlifting just makes me fat. No, overeating makes you fat. And you're probably looking at recovering through the wrong method. So in podcast number 225, it was another nutrition podcast, we discussed recovery and the question of food or sleep. Which do you need? So again, that is podcast number 225. So if you are eating to recover and you notice that you're gaining unwanted weight, you are overeating. But you're going to be afraid to eat less because you feel, man, I'm tired all the time. I'm not recovering well. If I eat less, it's going to be worse. I'm going to feel worse. I'm going to get less results. So what do? Do you either get fat unwantedly or do you get less results in your strength? Well, that's a horrible situation. We wouldn't want either one of those. So how you avoid that is you focus more on sleep. So if you increase your sleep, you will recover better with smaller amounts of food. So that way you don't have to have excessive calories, which cause the weight gain that you don't want. So some of my most elite athletes that I work with, they'll sleep anywhere from 8 to 10 hours a day. And people like in the freaking Olympics probably sleep 10 to 12 hours a day. So they'll get like that base 8 to 10 hours sleep, and then they'll try to get in another nap later in the day. So when I was in college, my parents won't like hearing this. Sorry, Mom and Dad. But there were a lot of classes that weren't attendance-based. So I would sometimes take the opportunity to train in the morning, eat a bunch of food, take a nap, then train later in the day, eat a bunch of food, and then go to bed. And any time I got to kind of eat followed by a nap, I always grew more. And the reason why I'm saying it in college, in a sense, was I would just skip a class if I didn't have to go to make sure I had time to eat and sleep. So, man, is that sad. But, by the way, I graduated totally fine. My grades were totally good. So I graduated with an A average. But I was just, yeah, we'll just say that wasn't necessarily the best choice. But it was a really effective method to recover and grow. So, if you are gaining unwanted weight and you feel like, reducing your calories will negatively impact your recovery, the answer is you must sleep more. Now, if you can't sleep more, then you just got to eat less, so that way you don't get fat, and you have to just deal with the fact that lack of sleep plus controlled nutrition intake are going to mean that every now and then you're tired and you're beat up and you're sore. So we can't have, everything be perfect if we're not doing everything perfect. So I can't gain the most amount of strength, gain the most amount of muscle, be the leanest I possibly can if I'm not sleeping correctly, eating correctly, and training correctly. You don't get to just not sleep right and get all the benefit of people who do sleep right. It doesn't work, life doesn't work that way. Okay, we only get rewards for the things we do, or we only get punished for the things we don't do. So, but that would be the goal. So listen to that podcast on food versus sleep, and you can get an idea of which one you need to focus on more for your recovery. And in general, strength athletes, sleep is more important than food. And it doesn't mean that food isn't important. It just means you can't out-eat your recovery. You must sleep appropriately for your recovery needs. Okay? You can't sleep 4 hours a night and then you eat a crap ton of food and think that that's going to balance each other out. It won't. Okay? You're just going to gain unwanted body fat. So, one of the things we want to focus on, of course, is if we're trying to maximize our performance, is eating proper meal timing around our activity or performance time, so our training time. So one of the things we want to do is we want to maximize eating, how well we eat before the workout, during the workout, and after the workout. So that's going to be one of the major components or concepts for strength athletes, is to make sure that you're paying attention to meal timing. You cannot go into the gym and have a great workout repeatedly if you don't eat before you work out. So you might be able to get away with it one day because you overdosed on a pre-workout. Maybe another day you're just kind of running high on adrenaline and stress. Maybe another day you ate like a whole pizza the night before, so you still have carbs left over from that in your muscles. So you get away with it occasionally, but you're not going to get away with it consistently, and it's not going to be the best case scenario. So if you're running your workouts off of like adrenaline, caffeine usage, you're going to even greater have a negative impact on your recovery. That's going to increase your need for sleep even more. And if you're already struggling to sleep, that's not going to be a good thing. Okay? So eating before workouts, the reason why that's important is you want to think of it as like your body is a machine, and before you would use any machine, you would want to look it over, make sure it was prepped, make sure all the things were greased, make sure it had fuel in it, make sure it was ready to be worked. And the reason why is if it's ready to be worked, there will then be minimal damage during the work. Whereas if you don't pay attention to the fuel, you don't pay attention to like greasing the machine, don't pay attention to any of the upkeep, and then you just run the machine, it's either going to break down in the middle of the workout, like in the middle of whatever work that machine is doing, or it's going to get to the end of the work and just be absolutely destroyed and damaged and beat up. And that's often what we do to our body. So if we work out underfed or fasted, you are just beating the shit out of your body. You're beating the shit out of the machine that you have. So you're just running a worn-out machine, an unprotected and uncared-for machine. And then you're wondering why you feel beat up and tired all the time. Well, you dug a deep hole, and then you're trying to recover all day from that hole. That's not a good way to live your life, is always struggling to recover. That's always going to have negative impacts on energy, negative impacts on our mind, our mood, our efficiency at work or daily life, negative impacts on our relationships, our mental health. So anytime we're always running on recovery, like struggling to recover, that's never an optimal way to live. So it's better to eat before you train. So that is a big thing for strength athletes. Do not work out on a fasted stomach. Okay? There are people who do intermittent fasting and all these other diet structures. And can you get used to working out on an empty stomach? Absolutely. I've done fasted workouts. Back in my old bodybuilding days when I was a moron and didn't know what I was doing, but neither did anybody else because everybody recommended fasted cardio. We would get up in the morning, you do an hour of fasted cardio on the step meal. I'd then go to classes, eat my, brown rice and ground turkey. Then I'd try to work out later in the day and wondered why I felt like shit. It was because I had dug a big hole in the morning. I barely gave it enough to recover, if anything, just to recover from that, let alone build up resources to then be able to handle the workout. So you can get used to working out on an empty stomach. If you overdose in caffeine and you have no clue of how well you can actually perform. Because what will happen is, and this happens dozens if not hundreds of times with past clients, is they've worked out using pre-workout and no food. The second I get a hold of them, we kind of drop off that pre-workout, we start feeding them, all of a sudden their strength shoots through the roof. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, I'm getting so much stronger. And to me, this is going to sound rude, but to me I'm like, no freaking shit, what the hell did you think was going to happen? You were running a machine without any care of the machine whatsoever, and now we pay the smallest level of attention to it, and it performs better. No kidding. No, of course that's going to happen. So, if you currently work out fasted, I would suggest that you try getting some calories in either before or during your workout. So I do have clients who work out really early in the morning, and I have some clients who have to work out after they take thyroid-based medication or other type of medication that requires you to not eat a specific time after that medication. So what we do with that is we do intra-workout stuff. So they'll be drinking some type of sugary drink usually. Now, if they've already been able to eat before the workout, I don't usually do protein during the workout. I just do some kind of sugar, like Gatorade, for example. And that gives them, like a trickling of fuel as they're using fuel. So it just kind of makes sense. If I can put gas in a car as I drive the car, that's optimal, right? That would be perfect. We would just put in as much gas as we needed and we'd always be okay. So the idea of an intra-workout drink is to give your body what it needs at that time, rather than waiting till after the workout to try to put it back in. So if somebody does, if they have their pre-workout meal and the pre-workout meal has the right type and right amount of protein, they're going to have protein already in their bloodstream while they're working out, so we don't have to add more. So we're just going to do the Gatorade, so sugar-based stuff, glucose-based. If they don't have, or they aren't able to get a full meal in before the workout, then we do usually add some kind of protein in there. And often I like to use whey, like a whey isolate, something like that. So BCAAs are kind of too expensive for how little amount you get of it. So we do a whey isolate, and we might put 10 to 15 grams of whey isolate into about 25 to 40 grams of sugar from Gatorade. Depends on the size of the person. And they'll sip on that during the workout. What it does, it gives their body a little bit of proteins to help kind of negate and lessen some of the muscle tearing down that happens while you train, and also gives our body more free-floating protein to kind of handle damaging repair and stuff like that while you're working out. So our body does have conflicting things while we're working out. It has to provide fuel and resources for the movements we're asking of it. But then in the times we're not moving, especially if you're a strength athlete, you probably don't train at a really high pace. So you probably have longer rest periods. So typically than somebody who does, like, say, circuit style training or endurance-based training. So you're going to have longer time periods where if your body had some extra protein floating around, it'll go ahead and start healing and repairing and fixing things in between the sets of when it's trying to provide the energy for the activity. Okay? So intra-workout is extremely important. Also, one of the major benefits of intra-workout is it also lessens or prevents dehydration. Dehydration can factor into muscle tears, so that's a big thing. And it also factors into just reduced performance levels. So there's tons of studies out there that show once you get a small level of dehydration, your strength output decreases, your explosiveness decreases. So an intra-workout drink is great not only for the energy resources, not only for the repair and protein and muscles and blah, blah, blah. It's also good for keeping the muscles safe, keeping them hydrated, and then also keeping our performance levels high. Okay? So then post-workout, that's the next thing we want to definitely pay attention to. If we want to stay lean, say you don't want to get any bigger. Okay, you're at the top of your weight class, or you're at the top of how much body fat you want. You don't want to get any fatter. You don't even want to come close to that. Then at your post-workout meal, you want to have proteins and carbs and fats. It's okay if you have proteins and carbs only, or proteins and fats. It's okay if you mix a little bit of carbs and proteins. Doesn't really matter. It's the total caloric count that matters, not whether you're having proteins or carbs at that time. So at that time, you're just trying to put calories back in your face to repair your from your training. If you've already done an like a pre-workout meal and an intra-workout meal, it's not that important whether you do carbs or fats at that post-workout meal. Now, if you have under-eaten, or if you skipped one of the intra-workouts or pre-workout meals, then you want to focus probably more so on protein and carbs. So that way the fats don't slow down the digestion of that post-workout meal. And if you get just proteins and carbs, it'll get the nutrients in faster into your muscles. So it's kind of like a give and a take, depends on the person. So I tend to eat mixed meals where I have both carbs and fats because I already have an intra-workout and I already have a pre-workout meal all the time. And so I don't need to be as sensitive to whether I'm having carbs only or if I'm having any fats in there. So, but the key is to just make sure that your calories of that meal are controlled. So too often people get like into the weeds of what the specific stuff, like, oh, I need to have both a fast and a slow digesting protein and a fast and a slow digesting carb. And, you know, maybe I can have MCT oil, which is kind of like a really fast digesting fat. And it's like, oh, for the love of God, like none of that matters if you're under eating or overeating. So oftentimes, as is the case, when people get that much in the weeds, they tend to kind of forget the bigger picture. So very rarely, and this it absolutely is the case, where people will be controlling their caloric intake, and then those details can be helpful. But often they're mixing the bigger picture things. So those are people that didn't have any intra-workout, or they didn't have any pre-workout meal, or their calories are way under. So I've had people come to me and they're doing like a post-workout meal of 300 calories, and they're worried about the nuances of, you know, the types of carbs and fats. And I'm like, it's only 300 calories. What the hell are you doing? Like, that's not going to be anywhere near enough for their body size and type. So they get too lost in the smaller details. So as we keep talking here, I'm going to give you guys what you should be paying attention to, but it's bigger picture things. Don't worry about small things. Get the big stuff right first. Get it right consistently to where it becomes secondary nature and you'd never have to think of it. Then worry about the details, okay? So, now, that would be if you want to stay lean, is you want to have proteins and carbs and fats. Again, we already talked about whether you should have carbs or carbs and fats. You just want to control your caloric intake, okay? And we'll be talking about how to know that here in a second. If you want to gain size, then that meal's got to be big, okay? You still want to have proteins, carbs, and fats, and often mixing your carbs and fats to that meal will help you get more calories. So if you want to get bigger, you need more calories in your post-workout meal. That's when your body's asking for calories. Stuff is beat up, it's damaged, it needs repaired, so give it the calories it needs so it can grow, okay? So you got to mix everything in and try to get food as much as you can after workouts. Now, big caveat is you cannot have these amazing, awesome, wonderful post-workout meals and then just not give a shit about your nutrition for the rest of the day or for the next day. So if you train in the evening, you have an awesome supper, you go to bed, you putz around with breakfast, or you miss breakfast and have a mediocre lunch, and then all of a sudden the next night you have your awesome pre-workout, your awesome intra-workout, and your awesome post-workout, but then again you don't pay any attention to the next day, you're only taking care of the smaller picture. You need to make sure you address the whole day. Okay, you need to be following normal healthy rules of eating around every 3 to 5-ish hours. You want to make sure you're giving your body enough of what it needs protein-wise. So we've done a ton of podcasts in the past about how much protein you should have. So and it's 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. If you're a strength athlete, you're probably looking more around that 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein. So you need to make sure that that's divvied up throughout the day and your body always has protein around. You want to make sure your body always has enough adequate calories so you're not running it super low and getting it super stressed, and then it's just missing out on opportunities to make adjustments to the stimulus of your training. So you need to make sure you're still eating your other meals, okay? So what do we track? How do we know if we're doing well? Is we need to track calories, protein, meal timing. You're going to track your body weight and your performance level, okay? So calories, you need to know how much you're eating per day. You don't need to know the exact number of calories. You can just do a volume control. So have an idea of how much you eat per day. Make that pretty consistent per day. We've done a podcast in the past about how many calories you need, so you can look that one up. Let me get the number. So let's see here. What you can do with these numbers is you can type into Google Brutal Iron Gym Podcast, and this one would be number 153. The title is Nutrition, How Many Calories Do I Need? So you can go onto Google, type Brutal Iron Gym Podcast 153, How Many Calories Do I Need? And that'll come up, and it'll give you the answer there, okay? So you want to track your calories, make sure you're consistent per day. That way you're not just having awesome days, like awesome meals on training days, but then totally blowing your off days, okay? So you need to be consistent day to day. You need to be consistent with your protein intake. So again, that needs to be consistent every day. It needs to be within that 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight range. And meal timing. You want to make sure that you have your pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout. Then make sure that you're still eating your other meals throughout the days. Okay, try to be as consistent as you can from day to day so your body knows when food is coming in, doesn't have to freak out and store too much body fat as protection against missed meals or an inconsistent schedule. Now, body weight. You want to track this so that way you can see what is happening to it, okay? So if your performance, which is the last thing we would track, say your numbers and everything are going up, but you're losing body weight, okay? If that's not your goal, if your goal isn't to lose weight, then you're under eating. You're missing out on a chance for more muscle or more recovery for strength. So you would want to have your performance going up in your training, but having your scale stay the same. So if your weight is going down, eat more. Okay? If your performance is going up, but your weight is going up, and that's not what you want, then you have to eat less. So knowing what you weigh, what the scale says, helps you understand what is happening within your body. So you know the performance, which is kind of like if you're training for strength, you already have a program that would have some degree of tracking in it and some way of letting you know if you're improving in your strength. So if that is improving, you want to make sure the scale is going where you want it as well. If you want it to go down, make sure the scale is going down. If your scale is going down, that's what you want, but your performance isn't, then you're probably under eating. So this is going to help you kind of navigate what to do based on what the performance is doing and what your weight scale is doing. And you can kind of navigate in between those and know whether you should go up in calories, stay the same in calories, or drop calories. Okay, so that's what you'd want to track, is your daily calories. Make sure you're consistent from day to day. Track your protein. Make sure you're consistent day to day and having enough. Track your meal timing. Make sure you're having your pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout. Make sure you're having your other meals of the day. You track your weight and your performance. Okay? So last things I want to go through real quick. I'm going to try to make them quick. Or what to do when you're ready to move up to a new weight class. Eat more. Okay? So if you have to cut 10 pounds or more every time you go to a competition, and it's getting kind of harder and harder for you to cut weight, then go ahead and take the time, eat more food, grow into the next weight class. Okay? If you are sacrificing performance at an event because of cutting weight, it's time to move up to the next weight class. Okay? It would be okay to cut a little bit of weight as long as your performance is doing well. But if you're cutting and you have repetitively bad shows, or like 50-50 they're bad, so one was good but the last two haven't been good, and it's kind of hit and miss, well then you're screwing yourself up and you're holding yourself back. Okay? Just move to the next weight class, make it easier for yourself, So you want to do that by increasing calories, but you want to stay with all the guidelines we just talked about. So don't just eat like a butthead. Eat clean food, eat good stuff, eat it around your workout. Maybe just make your post-workout meal a little bigger, make your other meals at other times of the day a little bigger. So that's what you do, is just slowly increase your calories and let your body grow to the next weight class. Okay? Now, what to do if you're wanting to stay strong and build muscle, but you need to get leaner, you need to lose weight. Well, the same rules of nutrition and training apply. So you still need to eat pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout. But what you can do is try to pull away the carbs and fats. Okay? Try to make sure your protein is consistent, like we said. That's one of the things we would track. But try to eat a little bit less carbs and fats at your meals away from the workouts. Bring the calories down just a little bit. So you wouldn't want to take away calories from your pre, intra, and post-workout first. You'd want to make sure the other meals were minimal to what they would need at their time, and then you can reduce from around the workout time, secondarily. You also want to focus on slower digesting foods at those other meals. So like if you train in the evening, what you eat during the day should be all very slow digesting foods. If you train in the morning, what you eat during the rest of the day should be all slow digesting foods. Okay? And you want to add in non-stressful activity. That'll help you not have to reduce calories, which might negatively impact your strength increases and your muscle growth. So you want to increase non-stressful activity. Some small examples is like a little more thorough warm-ups. So like at our gym, we have our Concept 2 rower. We have an attachment that you can put on any handle you want. So we swap out the handle that's on there and put on some D-rings. And we just do like almost like a seated cable row. And it has no eccentric to it, so it's not getting muscle damage and inflammation. You're just being more active in the mid-back. So that's a great way to superset that in between bench press warm-ups. And that helps you feel a tighter upper back while you bench press. So that's an awesome superset example. And just kind of one example of more thorough warm-ups. Another example is like using muscle cardio, and that's podcast number 30, way back when. We talked about what muscle cardio is, but you can use that for cool downs. So just kind of a couple sprints or just pushing the sled around after your workout, flipping some tires, beating up a tire with a sledgehammer. Just extra activity that doesn't cause a lot of joint or muscle stress, just helps you burn more calories. And that type of activity is way the hell better than walking on a treadmill or a step mill or doing boring steady state cardio. So focus more so on muscle cardio. And again, that's podcast number 30. So then on your recovery days, your quote-unquote rest days, just be more active. Go for a hike, walk your dog, go biking. You can go swimming if you have access to a pool. That's a great way to do it. It's low impact on the joints. You can kick a soccer ball around with the kids. Whatever you want to do, just try to be more active on your off days. Okay? So that was a quick rundown. I know it wasn't quick for you guys, but it's quick for me. Is quick rundown of nutrition concepts for strength athletes. Okay? So make sure you're eating pre-workout, intra-workout, post-workout. Make sure you're tracking your calories, protein, meal timing, weight, and performance. Make sure all that stuff is accounted for before you worry about any of the small details. Okay? So if you have any questions or if you have any trouble with making weight at meets or if you want a kind of better meal structure plan, any of that stuff, we're always happy to help, of course. I don't do the podcast to try to directly promote services, but I'm also not going to turn down the opportunity. So if you do want help with setting up nutrition plans for you as a strength athlete, based on these concepts and also more of the detailed stuff, so we can get more specific for you. But if you're interested in that, just shoot us an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com and we'll help you out. Okay? So, hopefully you like this. Hopefully it was helpful. If you do like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. Also, if you like the podcast, please, please, please share it with family and friends. So the more people we help, the happier the world will be. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. So the podcast is for you, so we'll know what you want to learn about. So always let us know. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.